All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to another edition of College Hoops Live. I'm your host, Josh Appelbaum. Great to be with you guys on a Tuesday. Hope everyone is off to a good start to their week. It is also April Fool's Day, but ain't no fooling around here. We're going to talk some sharp line moves for today with a main focus on the Final Four. So I want to talk about basically what we've seen this tournament because it's been, spoiler alert, one of the chalkiest tournaments we've seen in a very long time. For those of you who might be new to betting, what does that mean? It means favorites are winning and covering at a very high rate. So on the one hand, it's like, okay, you're favored, you're expected to win. So, not too surprising in that regard. But let me just give you a stat which really jumped out to me in terms of how chalky and just how predictable this NCAA tournament has been. Because, a lot of times you'll fill out a bracket where you have all one seeds in the Final Four and it never happens. Like they get knocked off. Maybe there's one seed that makes the Final Four. We have all four one seeds in the Final Four, and if that isn't enough, let me give you this stat right here. In the NCAA tournament, favorites winning games straight up are 51 and 13, 80%. So favorites have won 80% of games this March Madness. That's about a 5% ROI. That is the on track to be the most ever of all time. The NCAA tournament got expanded to 64 teams in 1985. I was born in 1987. I'm old now. I'm 37 years old. That's before I was born. So it goes to show you the most ever that we've had is 51 favorites winning overall in a tournament. That was in 2007. We're already at 51 right now. So literally, if just a single favorite wins at either Final Four game or the championship game, we're going to set the record for the most favorite wins in any NCAA tournament. So maybe this is good news to you. Maybe you've been playing a lot of favorites. Maybe you've had a very chalky bracket where you had all one seeds and people made fun of you and said there's no chance all one seeds make to the Final Four, which typically it's like the easy cop out. All one seeds doesn't usually happen, but it has happened. So with that in mind, regardless of how your NCAA tournament has been, I can tell you my NCAA tournament has not been very good because I am a data-driven contrarian bettor. I lean on a lot of dogs. Dogs really haven't barked that much this postseason. I would say one little angle that I noticed has been pretty good for contrarians is unders. They're not amazing here, but typically when you see favorites do well, if overs do well also, then that's great for the public because you got to remember the public, which is basically the vast majority of bettors in the sports betting world. Of course, in America, we're up to nearly 40 states that have legalized sports betting. The public gets bigger each year as more states legalize. The betting public is just, typically like 95, 98% of people who are betting on sports. There's only about 1-2%, maybe 3 or 4% of bettors who are considered professional bettors who set their own numbers who win at a high rate. So the vast majority of tickets that are placed, especially in a very public event like March Madness, are public bettors. You can call them public bettors, average Joes, you can call them squares, although the term square is a bit, some people kind of shake their head at that. It has kind of a negative connotation. But either way, typically the public is going to bet on favorites and overs because they're going to bet favorites because there's a bias at play. And again, sports betting we try to keep it as much in terms of the data as we possibly can. That's why I'm so happy and honored to team up with Rithmm. I'm going on my second year now working with Rithmm. But the public bets based on emotion. They don't bet based on data. They bet on emotion, gut bias, instinct. It's always funny. I might have made this joke before if you've tuned into a live stream, but you notice how people always say, go with your gut. To me, it's kind of like the worst thing you can say. I think to me, when you say go with your gut, basically what you're doing, you're saying, don't put it on me. Don't listen to what I say. Go with what you want. Therefore, if something bad happens, you can't blame me. But going with your gut is the vast majority of, public sports bettors. They're going to play one seeds because they're one seeds, the higher seeds, the bigger name schools. They're laying the points because this team is really good and they're expected to cover. Therefore, they should cover. Now, that has paid off. And I must say, as a contrarian bettor, it was a very chalky NFL year. If you can go back to the NFL season, where favorites won and covered at a very high rate. I believe it was the highest since like 2005. Then you have March Madness, where favorites have really dominated. So the public is on a bit of a hot streak here with NFL and with March Madness. Now, I'm a data-driven contrarian bettor, so that means my NFL season was not what I wanted it to be. March Madness has been disappointing, but I think you want to kind of take the data-driven approach and stick with it. You never want to get too high or too low and say, oh, all favorites are covering, so let me play all favorites. Because you got to remember, when the favorites are winning and covering, the odds makers are taking a hit. I actually saw a tweet right before I started this live stream. I believe it was from Johnny Avello, who is the head odds maker at DraftKings. And he said something along the lines of, you expect certain things to happen, sometimes they don't. So the odds makers who are setting these numbers, if favorites keep covering and winning, they're going to keep shading the number toward the favorite. So you'll see it in terms of Duke keeps winning and covering. Maybe they have this game, and we'll get to these Final Four games in a second because there's some intriguing Rithmm system matches here and edges we can hopefully take advantage of. But maybe Duke should be -5.5, but Duke's covering, every favorite's covering, so odds makers make them -6.5. Now, they might win by 10 or more, and it may not matter, but my whole point here is that when favorites win and cover at a high rate, that's bad for the books. You actually saw some reports from the NFL season where a lot of books took a big hit. They lost a lot of money, or they still made money, but not as much as they're used to, because the obvious public drunk guy at the bar plays keep covering and keep cashing. So I think it's easy to say, hey, play all favorites. Like I'm looking at the board right now. This may end up happening because it's been such a chalky March Madness. But you have Florida -2.5 against Auburn. You got Duke -5.5 versus Houston. Money line parlay them, lay the points. That's been the way this tournament has worked. Now, I would caution bettors to not just blindly do something just because, it's winning at a high rate, because you always got to worry about regression. Regression is basically when something happens at a high rate. Typically, it's going to even out over time. So you're probably going to see, if all these favorites are doing well, at some point, dogs are going to start to, bark back and start to claw back some of these lost units. So with that being said, again, maybe you've had a great March Madness, maybe you haven't. But I think at least the cool thing about Rithmm is that we still have models for all these games left. Of course, the Final Four. But we also have MLB. So before we dive into some of these Final Four games, which I kind of have leans and some early thoughts on all of them, side and total for all 4 games, I also want to alert you guys to the fact that today, Major League Baseball went live in the app. So if we go up here, click MLB. It used to say coming soon. Now it's officially here, MLB. So we'll be able to look at some prop bets, all live in the app. We'll also be able to look, and again, pitching, strikeouts, outs, all these opportunities are for us. We can go to games. We have run line. We'll get into this in a second because I want to start with March Madness. But you'll have your pre-built model, which was available to me as soon as MLB went live. I actually haven't even had time to create my own model, so I'll work on that. But I just want to alert everyone to the fact that MLB is now live. So I want to give a huge shout out to Megan, to Brian, to Alec, to James Santor, my guy, who have been hard at work getting this going. And I really give them credit because I know they wanted it for opening day, but you don't want to put out something that you're not fully, proud of or have your faith in it. You want to put it out there when you know that it's working. So I actually kind of like the fact that they waited a couple days, made sure the game's populated, made sure all the models, back test them, and now we're good to go here for MLB season. But with that being said, I want to start off with, again, college basketball, because this is, quote unquote, the College Hoops live stream. Willie Tomlinson. What up, Willie? Good to see you, my man. Hope you're doing great. Happy April 1st. So let's talk about some of these games, and we can start with the early ones. So both these games are coming up on Saturday. One comment that I would make is there's a really long lag time between now and Saturday. So we have a great doubleheader here. Michael Hovey. What up, Michael? Good to see you, my guy. Look, we got all our sharp guys here coming into the live chat. Hope you're doing well, Michael. But what I was mentioning is it's a long lag time between now and obviously Saturday. So I would almost treat the Final Four as if it's like an NFL week or a college football week, because there's going to be a lot of movement between now and Saturday. And the other angle here is, hey, these lines are moving. We're going to talk about the rhythm edges, but you also want to kind of keep in the back of your head the fact that the public may not be betting these games until later in the week. Like, the one thing about public bettors is that, sports betting isn't their career. They look at it as a escape from everyday life, a hobby, entertainment. I would try to look at sports betting as, a side hustle or kind of hopefully a supplementary, income that you can add to your regular day job. But the whole point being is that, sharps, wise guys, they have no other day job. Sports betting is their only job. and their income paying the bills depends on them producing a profit in sports betting. Now, the public, they have day jobs, so maybe you work in real estate, maybe you are a fireman or a cop or a teacher. With that being said, you're probably working 9 to 5. So you're not betting these games until you get out of work. And if these Final Four games aren't until Saturday, you probably may not have the incentive to bet them right now. So this is a long-winded answer or a long-winded explanation of me saying I will be patient with these games. Like, we're going to talk about them, and I think there are some angles to think about right now, but I really want to wait until later in the week. Let's let the bets build up. Let's let the public come in hard later in the week, and especially on Saturday. And then, of course, on Saturday, one game is at 6 o'clock. One game is technically 8:49, although they're never starting when you think they are. So maybe that starts at 9. So we can even wait for a game day movement on Saturday where limits are raised, biggest bets come in. And obviously, we want to be kind of on the side of the closing line value, where that line is moving. So I will be patient with these lines because, again, today's a Tuesday. All these games are on Saturday. With that being said, let's look at some of these numbers. Let's look at what the betting market is doing, and let's also look at what Rithmm is telling us. So I'm going to scroll down. I clicked my college basketball. I do always want to hit refresh. You can see we're not that far off. Last refresh at 340, but to me, it's always a good idea to just refresh your page because the team at Rithmm and the back end data, it's always, it's like a hamster wheel. It's always moving. It's always updating. So you want to make sure you get this alert and it tells you, hey, all the data is really up to date, literally to the second. So hopefully it's the strongest information that we can lean on. So with that being said, I would mention there's a lot of these, NIT, CBC, CIB, all these other conference or kind of postseason tournaments. I'm going to bypass them for now because to me, let's look at Final Four. That's where hopefully we can make our money. So the first one I want to look at, of course, is Auburn and Florida. Now, we mentioned early on how obviously chalk has done so well. So the first thing that jumps out to me is this is a relatively short number. Florida minus 2.5. Now, Florida opened across the market mostly minus 2.5s. You are seeing some books that are juiced up toward Florida. So basically it's Florida minus 2.5, minus 115. Why is that important? Because really, first thing that jumps out to me is both of our system matches are on Auburn plus the points. So if you are currently Auburn plus 2.5, and right now you're getting Florida juiced up minus 2.5, minus 115, that's telling me that this line may go to 3. Now, it may not go to 3. Hey, it could even drop down to 2. But the juice is so important. And I think, as a bettor, you might have a slightly different process than I do or a completely different process. I'm looking at the market, trying to figure out based on the line movement, the bet splits, my system matches, where's the smart money going? How can I bet against the public? How can I beat the closing line? That's my ultimate goal because I want to ideally place a bet that's with the sharps and against the public, and I'm with the house. That's the ultimate goal here. But the juice is important too because the juice isn't just that 3-digit number that you see next to the odds, next to the side or the total money line. It's baked in, but it's also going to tell you which way the wind is blowing, where the liability is, and most importantly, which direction the line might move next. Because when you're betting on a game, it can be any sport, side total doesn't matter. There's always a question that you want to ask yourself. Should I bet it now because this is the best number I'm getting and it's only going to get worse? Or should I wait? Because if I wait, I might get a better number. The way you can answer that, you can't always answer that question, and some things might surprise you, but typically the juice movement is going to answer that question for you. So the fact that you're juiced, what basically juiced up means is you're seeing elevated or increased juice on one side or the other. So standard juice is minus 110. Again, you're risking 110 to win 100. That's basic, standard, what you're typically going to see. But juice can also go up minus 115, minus 120. That would be basically being juiced up. On the flip side, when that side is getting juiced up, the other side is getting decreased, reduced juice. So maybe you're minus 105. You're even money, you're plus 100. What's important there is that the side that's getting juiced up, the minus 115, minus 120, that's telling you some important information. It's telling you that that's probably the side getting the majority of action. They're making you pay a higher price for a reason because, again, that's probably the side that's getting in, that's taking a lot of smart money. But more importantly, It's telling you which direction the wind is blowing and where the next move may be. So the fact that Auburn is, reduced juice plus 2.5 at minus 105, minus 106. On the flip side, Florida is minus 2.5, minus 115. That's telling me that even though it hasn't happened yet, we are at least on a Tuesday, maybe inching up toward 3. So if you like Florida, you probably want to bet them right now. If you like Florida, I mean, I would be more interested in a money line. It's like minus 150. Yes, you're paying a higher price, but you'd hate to see them win by 1 or 2 and you lose on your 2.5. But to me, I'm looking at waiting and playing Auburn. I'm trying to get Auburn plus 3. The first thing I noticed is that our model here from Rithmm shows an edge on Auburn. Basically, Rithmm is telling us this should be a 2-point game. So if I'm getting 2.5, I'm getting the hook. I can even get 3. There's some actionable value there. Also, the fact that this is a recommended play. So it's gone through all the checks and balances at Rithmm, and based on the information, this is a play that Rithmm has confidence in. Now, this is basically use caution, a caution flag spot, but similar sort of thing, basically 2.1. So we are getting 2.5 right now. If we wait, hopefully we can get a 3. Now, the other angle that I'm looking at is this is also a really big contrarian play. So bet against the public. And again, this is the thing when you're a contrarian bettor, it's a way of life. I'm not going to say you've made a deal with the devil, because actually going contrarian is a smart play long term, but you got to a fork in the road at some point. You picked a direction. You're not a contrarian every now and again. That's a lifestyle. Stormin Norman, my guy on Twitter. What's up, Stormin? See, Stormin, Willie Tomlinson, Michael Hovey. These are my GWBs, my grinders with blinders. They know that, again, contrarian is a lifestyle. There are games where you're going to look like an idiot because you're playing the team getting 20%, 30%, and maybe they get rolled. But long term, basically, you want to be against the masses, not with the masses. So that's really where the bet splits come in. And what kind of intrigued me about Auburn here, and what kind of makes me like them even more, especially because I'm going to wait to hopefully get a 3, is that right now, if you look at DraftKings, 66% of bets are on Florida, spread bets. So Auburn is only getting 34% of bets. If you look at Circa right now, this is really intriguing. Auburn's only getting 27% of spread bets, but 83% of spread dollars. That is a huge discrepancy. That tells you out at Circa, which, by the way, if you've never been to Circa, make a time to go out there. Whether it's with your significant other, with your boys, you got to get out to Circa. It is literally sports bettor's paradise. So that's a side note. But out and at Circa, they pride themselves on taking in smart money, not rejecting it. And right now, again, only 27% bets, 84% dollars on Auburn. That tells me that, again, out in the desert at Circa, a lot of wise guys like Auburn here in the points. The other thing that tells me is a bit of a line freeze. Now, a line freeze is when you have heavy betting, but the line really won't move. So in this case, Florida, 73% of bets at Circa, 66% at DraftKings. Florida opens minus 2.5. Why aren't they up to 3? Why aren't they up to minus 4? Typically when you have heavy betting, the odds makers will move the line toward the popular side to limit their liability, to raise the price, to make it more expensive. At the same time, make it sweeter, better payout, sweeten up the pot to go the other way with the dog. But that really hasn't happened. Everyone's playing Florida. I don't blame them. Florida looks great. They've been great all year. The analytics say Florida's a really good team based on the KenPom numbers. But why aren't we up to 3, at least by now? Like, that's normal movement. Heavy betting, adjust the number toward the popular side. So it's a bit of a line freeze. You have heavy betting Florida, but the line hasn't moved. It is juiced up. They are raising the juice on you a little bit. But that tells me, again, the odds makers are more concerned about contrarians going with Auburn in the points than they are every drunk guy at the bar playing Gators. So that tells me, again, the market is showing liability on Auburn. We mentioned here our system matches basically have a 2-point game. I'll also throw this at you guys. KenPom has Florida winning, but only by 1 point. He's got Florida winning, I believe, 81 to 80. Let me just double check that because I want to hit on the total here in a second. I think it was, and by the way, you can get all these for yourself, kenpom.com, and you go to the fan match tab, and it'll give you all his predictions. But yeah, he's got Florida winning 81 to 80. He's got these teams relatively equal. He has Auburn 4th in the country, Florida 3rd. You have two teams here that are both top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency. So we have Rithmm telling us it's going to be a 2-point game. We have KenPom telling us it's going to be a 1-point game. We have everyone playing Florida, yet the line really hasn't moved. So I know it's a Tuesday. I want to give it some time, but I'm going to bet against the public and take Auburn in the points here. And I'm going to wait and try to get a +3. So that's my first thought here, Florida Auburn. Now, I do want to mention real quick the total, because the total is interesting as well. We have seen it dip a little bit. Florida Auburn opened like 161.5. It's now down to 160.5. So it has fallen. And you have a good bet split on the under, 60% bets, 71% dollars on the under at DraftKings. And let's just look at what Rithmm has here for the total. Now they're both caution plays, but they're both under 160.5. You're basically 158.5 and 158.7. The other thing when you look at Final Four is neutral court, really important games. You also got to think, this is a long layoff, so tired legs don't really apply as much. But public is once again, leaning over, yet this total is dropping. So it's not a recommended green star, but the total's falling, and Rithmm likes the under. So I'd lean a little bit there toward the under. So early thoughts here. I'm waiting for Auburn +3. Now let's go to the other game, Houston and Duke. The Dukies. This one is interesting because we have seen some line movement here. So we opened this game with Duke, a 4.5-point favorite. Now Duke is up to 5. I believe I see one shop at 5.5. So it's pretty clear here the line is moving toward the Dukies. Now, if you look at the splits here, the bets and dollars from DraftKings and Circa, public is all over Duke. Again, deja vu, wash, rinse, repeat. You love them or hate them, public loves sweating Duke. They're getting 72% of bets, 79% of money at DraftKings. At Circa, Duke is getting 70% of bets, 96% of dollars. So a lot of bets and dollars are going Duke. The early move is toward Duke. So to me, when you see this line move, like we just talked Florida Auburn, where it was 2.5, it is a little juiced up, but really hasn't moved off the opener. The early move here is toward Duke, -4.5 up to -5, -5.5. That tells me that as soon as this line came out, sharps, who the other distinguishing criteria of a sharp or a professional bettor is that they set their own numbers, they set their own power ratings, and then they look at discrepancies, basically what their number is versus what the odds makers have. And the greatest of them all, Billy Walters, he set incredibly accurate power ratings based on his basically based on his models and algorithms and his formulas. And he was kind of the first. He created this group called the computer group in the 80s, which everyone does it now, but at that time it was revolutionary. No one was able to, use computers and models to set their own numbers. That's why he crushed it for so many years. But this tells me that when this opened -4.5 Duke, sharps hit Duke. They caused this line to get up to 5, even 5.5, because maybe they had this game at 5.5 to begin with. And that's why when it was 4.5 open, that provided an edge, a advantage over the sports books. So line's going to Duke. So my first thought is we have to respect the early money going Dukies. My other thought, though, is this is a very popular play. If you're playing Duke, again, they've pretty much played great and covered almost every. They may have covered every game. I don't even know. They covered a lot, I can tell you that. But if I'm playing Duke, I'm getting the worst of the number after it's moved, and I'm also with the public. Now, those are no-nos for me. Like, Duke may roll. They might win by 10. They might win by 20. They're that good. But as a value-driven data bettor, if I'm with the public and getting the worst of the number, that's a no play for me. I can't be with it. It doesn't mean I have to be against it, but it's either it's definitely not a with it. It's got to be either lay off or go the opposite way. So I'm intrigued a little bit by Houston here. Now, we have both models that are against each other, and they're both caution flags. Let's look at the first one. Houston is actually plus 3.9. So basically, we have a 69.9 to 66 final score. So 3.9, we can round it up to 4. You're getting 5.5. Tells me we got a little bit of an edge here on Houston. Now, my other model, my Josh model, it's more of a, what is that, a 4-point game? 4.3. So it's a little bit higher. The one thing I did notice, though, is our friend KenPom. he actually has, let me go to Saturday. He has Duke winning by 2. So even though it's not a recommended play, both my models are around 3 or 4 points. Ken Palm's got him by 2. We can get a 5.5. We can be against the public. I'm going to sit back and let this line go as high as it'll go. You've already lost value on Duke. The other angle here is, does Duke win the game? I mean, they're minus 250 on the money line. That's too high for me to play. Money lines to me, it's short favorites like minus 3 or less. I'm sure a lot of people will money line parlay Florida and Duke. But based on the fact this line has already moved, I'm going to sit back and can I get a +6? Does this even go to 6? The other thing between now and Saturday is, does buyback occur? Buyback is basically when a line is moving in one direction and then you start to see it stop and creep back the other way. It's actually moved too much, and it's created a situation where sharps say, hey, this has moved so much in this direction, it has now created an opportunity, a value play to buy low, get that high water mark, and you see it creep back. So with that being said, 5.5 right now is your highest number. Does it fall back to 5, or does it steam further up to 6? So if I'm playing Houston, to me, it's not really a sharp play. Like, to me, Auburn has elements of being a sharp play with a line freeze. Heavy betting Florida, but the line won't move. Houston isn't really a sharp play. To me, it'd be a contrarian value play. You're against the public, and you're getting an inflated line. So that's something to monitor. The other thing is, this is a very low total game. It's 136.5. It actually fell. It opened at 137 at some shops. In terms of the total, it's got some good splits, 80% bets, over 90% money on the under at Circa. And at DraftKings, you have 75% of bets on the over, yet this total has fallen a bit. So, lower scoring game, you'd have to think that would benefit Houston because they play such great defense. I don't think Houston wants to get in a shootout with the Dukies here. Well, let's go to the total. They're both caution plays, yellow flag, but they're both on the under. So the first one here, 60 and 60 is 120, 130, 135. So you're still under that 136.5. And your other one here, 136. So I'd lean a little bit under here. Again, you have good bet splits. The total is falling. And I think if you're Houston, you really want to bog this down and keep it close. So there's a lean to me on the under. So we will see how these develop, over the next, 4 or 5 days here. But as of now, looks like we got some opportunities here to think about going with Auburn +2.5. Can I get Houston +6? And in the terms of the total, it's all under money. So I'll throw it to you guys. Storm and Norman, Willie, Michael Hovey, have you guys played any bets? Any of these jump out to you? Are you on any good futures? I wanted to mention this in terms of futures movement. Duke opened +320 prior to the tournament to win it all. They're down to +105. Florida opened +380. They're down to +300. Auburn opened +400. They're actually up to +500 because they'd have to go through both Florida and Duke. And Houston opened +600. They're down to +400. So I feel like if you're on Duke, you're happy. You got +320 early. Now it's +105. But either way, we'll see how this thing shakes out on Saturday. Now, went through the Final Four. I want to talk some baseball because we now have, for the first time ever, this is brand new. Rithmm has never had MLB before until today. So this is just awesome that we now have MLB added amongst all the sports that we can look at. So first thing I want to do, MLB, let's just check it out. Let's see the layout. Let's see some of these predictions. I want to mention a couple things. Obviously, if you're betting baseball, you're betting a majority of money lines to win the game. The reason why baseball and hockey are more of a money line sport than basketball and football is that the margin of victory can typically be small. You might win by just one goal, one run. Football typically winning by 3, 7. Those are your key numbers. But that's why you go spread in the other sports versus baseball, hockey, where you got the money lines. Well, we got Willie in here. I like Duke to win the championship. They passed the eye test for me. I probably won't bet the game. Yeah. So, hey, I mean, the markets just sit right there with you, Willie. Dukies look pretty darn good. So I can't argue with that. Aside from the money line, which is going to be a majority of your bets, you do have the run line. So, again, if you've never bet baseball, this might be new to you. Run line just means the spread. you're betting typically the favorite -1.5 at a plus money payout. You're going to get more of a payout. Or you can cut down a big money line. Like let's say, a favorite is -200, big favorite. -1.5, got to win by 2. Maybe you're getting +110. Maybe it's still a little bit better of a price. Or you can get the dog +1.5, but that's going to be at a minus number. So you can lose by 1 and you can still cash. We also have totals, total amount of runs scored. So obviously totals are much lower than like the NFL. You're going to get typically 8.5 is kind of your right down the middle total. Low total is considered around 7, 7.5. High totals, mostly you'll see that if the wind is blowing out or Coors Field based on the altitude, you can get into 10, 11. The highest total I think I've seen, I remember there's a Coors Field total of like, I don't know if Willie or Michael or Storm and Norman remember this. I want to say there's like a 16, 14, but that's typically, you're never going to see that really. But anyway, these are your options that are available to you. A couple ones that jumped out to me. In terms of money lines, there's a lot of money lines on some dogs today. But really what intrigued me are some of these totals. Like, for example, one that caught my eye was the Yankees Diamondbacks over 8.5. Now, if you look at let me pull up my live odds page for this game. This Yankee total, it opened 8.5, really juiced up to the under. So it's like 8.5 under -120. It got to 8 at some shops, came back up to 8, but now the juice is a little bit less on the under. So there's been a little bit of a juice flip toward that over a bit. And one thing that really jumped out to me is if you click this green star recommended play, add these two numbers up, you're looking at a total combined runs here of 10. So if you're getting over 8.5, you need 9 runs to cash it. Rithmm is saying it's closer to 10. That tells me we got some opportunity here to think about an over. Obviously, with the torpedo bats with the Yankees, they say they're not illegal. Maybe so. But Diamondbacks can put up some runs as well. Willie's on Tampa Bay with me. Yeah, I like Tampa Bay here today. Saw a good sharp steam move against the Padres. Good bet split. I had a lot of system matches. See, when I bet baseball, first thing I look at is line movement. Like I want 10 cents of movement or more. I want a good bet split, and I lean a lot on system matches. Baseball is such a data-driven sport. There's such a huge sample of games every single day that if you fit a system for me, and basically you're combining the past with the present odds movement, that's what gets me excited. So like with Tampa, I had an interleague system, non-division favorite system, non-division favorite with steam. I would say though, I think Rithmm might have been against me there. Yeah, Rithmm was actually looking at the Pirates here, plus money. So you got to kind of figure out, is this a blindly follow Rithmm? I don't mean that negatively. I mean, you're not going to just paralysis by analysis and psych yourself out. You're just going to play the recommended plays, or do you use a little bit of market movement and analysis to come to those conclusions? But really, the totals, that's what really got me today. I think you have some discrepancies, like the Twins and the White Sox over 7.5. Rithmm's predicting 9 runs. The other thing I look for is the weather. So if you guys haven't gone there yet, Roto Grinders does a really good job of weather. You can go to MLB and you can get these really good reports here. So if you look at, let's see, the Yankee game, we just talked about the Yankee game with an edge there to the over 8.5, predicting basically 10 runs. This is the weather report for the Yankee game. Winds are out to right at 10 miles per hour. Chilly temp, 50 degrees may offset some of the advantage, but key phrase to me is 10 miles an hour to right field. So maybe some torpedo bats get some homers there. Let's see the other couple of ones that jumped out to me. There was another total. Mentioned the White Sox. Royals, Brewers. The Brewers have been giving up just ridiculous amount of runs early on. Over 8.5, predicting 9. So to me, like, you need at least, like, that would be a half run edge. I mean, you only need 9 to win, obviously, over 8.5. But unlike the Yankee one, that was really a bigger edge. Like the Yankee one was 10 runs over 8.5. So the bigger advantage, the bigger edge, obviously you have more confidence in that. The other one that jumped out to me, was it this one? Yeah, the Guardians Padres over 7.5. That's a 9. So just looking for discrepancies. That's really key. The other one I want to mention is your props. baseball is a huge player prop sport. So you're going to get your recommended ones first. So obviously Jazz Chisholm, can he get you a hit? It's juiced up -145, but Rhythm's predicting 1.1 hits. You only need one to cash. That could be worth a look. What I lean on a bit, and I'll be honest with you guys, I bet a lot more game bets than I do player props, because a lot of the information that I lean on is more widely available for game bets than individual player props. But that's the beauty of Rithmm. I was never a big NFL prop better until I teamed up with Rithmm, and they've helped me cash a lot of player props. But a couple of these really were eye-opening. Like Michael Lorenzen, he's pitching against the Brewers tonight. You have an under 14.5 total outs recommendation. That's +155. Rhythm's predicting he's going to get you 10 outs. So what is that? 3 innings? 3-point-something innings. I don't know if he's coming off an injury or what the deal is there. But that kind of jumped out to me. Logan Allen, over 3.5 strikeouts. Can he get you 4 strikeouts? Rhythm is predicting 6.4 plus money. Not a bad one there. Michael Liberator. I actually like the Cardinals again tonight. Willie might be on him. There's a move toward the Cards. Willie, I don't know if you played him last night. They let us down, man. They're up 3-1, blew it late. But Liberator, he's been more of an opener, I believe. So can he go less than, 4 innings? Or just, 4 innings is 12 outs, under 13.5. I actually sometimes like the juiced up -125 because it tells you it's more expensive for a reason. Rhythm's predicting 9 total outs. To me, this is where you can make your money. Your outs and your strikeouts with starting pitchers, especially if you can kind of isolate a power pitcher against a team that strikes out a lot. Like I'm a Red Sox fan. You can see my hat, Rafael Devers, 0 for 20 with 15 Ks. Let's see. Babyface Assassin, what up, my man? Another friend of mine from Twitter. I've been on Yankees first 5. They've gone 3-0 so far. Love the Cards tonight. Nice. Yeah, Yankees have been really good to start. And Babyface, we need the Cards tonight. I couldn't believe they blew that 3-1 lead and lost in extras. So hopefully they come to play. But yeah, I'm going to take a bit of a cautious approach with Rithmm MLB just because it's brand new. I am learning it as we all are. And I'm trying to find my edge, trying to figure out, kind of what works for me and, layer in some things that, the market matches with these Rithmm predictions. And remember, baseball is such a long season. Like, Babyface, Willie, Michael, Storm, and Norman. I mean, these are the guys that have been with me a long time, which I so much value and respect. But they can tell you it's such a long season, 15 games a day for over 6 months. So don't go too crazy early on. Pick your spots. You can always just go to all, and you'll get the recommended plays first. But that would be kind of my starting point. Dip your toe in the water, build your confidence as you can interpret these predictions even more clearly as you get deeper into the season. So that would be, again, the way I would approach it. And personally, that is how I'm approaching it. It's a marathon. Yes, it is. Bounce back spot for St. Louis. I hope so, man. Let's light up Kyle Hendricks tonight. Guy had like a 12 ERA last year. But anyway, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. College Hoops Live. I broke down Final Four, hit on a little MLB. We will have another live stream next Tuesday. So we'll be able to, or maybe Monday. I got to talk to my buddy Alec. When's the championship game? Actually, might be Monday. But I think we're going to talk prior to the championship game. And then when we do these live streams, it'll be, so there's Alec one. Yeah, Monday. So we'll have a live stream on Monday to break down the championship game, which, if the chalk proves right again, I guess we're going to have, Florida and the Dukies. Which again, I can't believe this stat. Favorites are winning 80% of the time. It's called March Madness for a reason. Where's the madness? Although one thing I will say, guys, even though there haven't been a lot of the upsets, I think we could be in for some good Final Four games. Like, we didn't have your NC State from last year, but at least you're getting really the best of the best in the Final Four. So hopefully we're in for some good tight matchups because, again, I'm leaning on some of these dogs here. But anyway, I want to thank everybody. Alec, for doing a great job behind the wall. My guy Babyface, good to see you. Willie, Michael, Storm, and Norman. As always, I want to leave you guys with a request. If you haven't done it yet, please can you give Rithmm a 5-star review in the App Store? And also, I'll point to it. There we go, up there, top right corner. Could you please, if you haven't done it yet, download the Rithmm app and tell a friend about it, because the more people that know about Rithmm, learn about it, obviously I think is a good thing, because sports betting is a growing industry, as we all know, but there's a lot of biased opinion out there. How often do you hear people tell you what a line opened at, how it's moved, and use data to the advantage of hopefully finding a sharp bet? Rithmm, to me, is the best at that. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great Tuesday. I'll see you guys back on Monday, and hopefully we can cash some Final Four and MLB bets. But good luck. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.